Next up on the number one tee.
Well, hello and welcome back to your virtual tea time. My name is Tori, and today we're joined again. We have the pleasure of having Michael Leonard from the Wicked Smart Podcast back on. Hi, Michael.
Hey, great to be back. Appreciate you having me on a third time.
Absolutely. So here's the thing. We are talking about things you didn't do to become a scratch golfer. And let's get into the whole scratch golfer conversation first, because I know a lot of you, myself included, a big goal was always to become a scratch golfer. It is to become a scratch golfer. I finally got to the pinnacle about 18 months ago, 2 years ago, and man, it felt good. So I get it. And I get that, you know, we have that goal and that you really work towards it. What do you think it is, Michael?
The goal itself, or why people want it?
Why is there such a fascination around it?
I think it's like the six-pack of golf, right? If you have a six-pack, like you don't just, I mean, there's people that are genetically, blessed, but for the most part, if you have a six-pack, you worked really hard in the gym, you ate right, you recovered, you did all the things. Like the same thing with golf. You really can't fake a scratch golfer. Like if you got to that point, the average male's 14, the average female's 28. So if you're there, if you've made it to scratch, you've in the top 5-10% of all AM golfers. So I think it's just like kind of a calling card. Like, hey, I put in the work, I did it. And it is just wildly rewarding because you know you're going to shoot around par or hopefully always break 80.
Yeah.
And I guess maybe kind of a bragging point. But I think for me, it's just like a cool target to shoot for, right? It's like you start to break 100, then 90, then 80. And then it's just kind of the next step in the evolution. And then you get to scratch sometimes. And then you're like, well, being a plus would be really cool too.
Yeah, so exactly.
It's a never-ending cycle.
That's the point I was going to make. It does just, a new level becomes the goal after that. But let's actually talk about the reality of being a scratch golfer. So 0.0. Like, what are they actually shooting? And I think, you just pointed on you want to shoot around par. But a lot of the scores actually aren't around par. We're talking there's going to be some 78s, some 79s in there. Because again, if you look at the handicap index, that is your potential. Mm-hmm. So I think we have this thought in our brain that to be a scratch golfer, you're shooting par or under every single time. And I'll tell you, if you're doing that, you are plus, plus, plus.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's the biggest misconception. I'm so glad you said potential because a lot of people reach out to me and I've surveyed my audience several times, and scratch golf is the number one. Scratch golf or break 80. One of those is always the top two. And so I think it is really important always to manage expectations in all aspects of golf, but specifically with scoring too. Because just because you're a 0 handicap doesn't mean you're going to shoot a 72 every time. Like it's like you said, your potential. You're more likely to shoot 75, 76.
Yeah.
You can still shoot the mid 80s. You might sneak in one in the low 70s or maybe the high 60s, depending on the course rating and stuff. But yeah, I think that if your goal is to shoot par or better, we probably better move the goalpost to +2 or +3 or +4. So that's why it's like, if you look at the pros too, like I think it was Tiger when he was in his prime, he was like a +9. Just insane.
Oh my God.
Yeah, like I've seen different stats that are shared on Instagram with that, and it's like we don't really understand. Even the average pro is a +5, +6.
Yeah.
So yeah, scratch golf is a great goal to have for the everyday player, but it doesn't mean you're always going to have just 72 or less.
Yeah, and actually, what are your thoughts on a 5 handicap, or let's even go down to a 3? So 3, 4, 5, moving down to a scratch. That is a big adjustment. That is a lot of work. Even though, because sometimes going from a 15 to a 10 or a 20 to a 15 or even like an 8 to a 5, I'm not going to say easy by any means, but can happen sooner than you think. The reality of going from a 3 to 5 to a 0 is pretty darn hard.
I think at that level, people get too concerned with swing. Like if you're already shooting that good, your swing can always improve. Like that's the biggest thing I always try and tell anyone I'm working with, like with mental golf coaching. Everyone always wants this perfect swing. And we're going to be working on our swing the rest of our lives. Tiger's still working on a swing. JT, any of these guys, any professional's always working on their swing. But for the everyday golfer, like we don't have endless time to be out on the range trying to dial in the perfect swing. And if you're already a low single digit handicap, a lot of times it's mental game. A lot of times it's just routines, short game. It's the little things. So I would challenge people that are on that 3 to 5 level and want to get to scratch to spend maybe a little less time working on their swing and a little less time on the mechanical side of things and work on routines and how you're picking targets and practicing differently with, instead of hitting the biggest bucket of balls, hitting a small bucket, going through your routine, playing more golf versus practicing. Like there's a lot of things you can do, but I think that most everyday golfers just get way too bogged down with mechanics, the YouTube rabbit hole, and we just try and fix everything. And for me, some people can benefit from it and really are more on the technical side. I am not. So like when I, in that Instagram post that you emailed about, it was like, that was one of the things that I talked about, is not going down the YouTube rabbit hole, because I get so overwhelmed and I don't like making swing changes. Like they take a long time, they're uncomfortable. Like if I've gotten to this far, it's the little things. So I would just stress that to people as well. It's like the littlest things are going to move the needle more than trying to completely overhaul your swing.
Exactly. And that was a good segue, because that's number one on the list for, and we're going to dive right into it. So things I didn't do to become a scratch golfer. So let's touch on the YouTube again. So I did not go down the YouTube rabbit hole.
So I kind of did, and then I realized this is counterproductive. I've had one lesson in the last year, like a very slight tune-up kind of lesson. Before that, in like 2019, I went to Q school and I missed it by a couple shots, and I realized like, okay, my swing is holding me back a little bit. Like my short game was amazing. My mental game was, it's the highlight of my golf career, is thinking about those 3 days in Nebraska. But it was very evident that my swing was kind of holding me back. It really wasn't the short game or the mental game. And so I started working with Boyd Summerhays when I came back, and found a lot of success. I remember the first lesson, like just had one of those kind of click moments. And so then it was great. We worked with him for a little bit. And then really since then, I haven't had anyone specific. So afterwards, I would start to, in the off season, you get a little too much time on your hands. You find yourself on YouTube. I like YouTube for podcasts and news and all this other stuff. And, sometimes they know I'm a golfer. The algorithm loves you. And so it shows you what you're looking for. And then sometimes you're like, oh, and then you see this video, and then you go to that video, and all of a sudden you like blacked out and watch 6 different people tell you how to shallow the golf club. And you're like in your living room doing the move. Your girlfriend's like, what are you doing? And I'm like, it's just right. It's, you're trying to do it.
I have figured it out.
Yeah.
Right here.
Yeah. So many epiphany moments. And then you go try it and it doesn't work.
Yeah.
And so I feel like it's just information overload. Sometimes like I said, I love YouTube. All the people creating videos. It's a lot of work. It's great. But if you want to go on YouTube, either work with someone like in person, work with someone online with like Skillist or a different like app. And then if you want to just work with someone and learn from them on YouTube, because there's a lot of great coaches and stuff on there, just listen to one if you are going to do it. Because a lot of people have different philosophies on how to swing the golf club. And so the second you start to hear this person says to do this and this person says to do that, then you're in your head, then you don't know what to do. And I think the Dr. Bob Rotella quote, the thing you just got to always remember, train it on the range so you can trust it on the course. So less is more sometimes with good old YouTube.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to remind everyone too, just because you hit a shot that's not perfect out on the golf course doesn't mean you have to start changing everything, especially out on the course, but meaning like we're going to hit a couple wayward shots every once in a while. That's not...
Isn't it funny,
That doesn't sound the alarms by any means.
Golfers go right into that fix-it mentality. That's just how most of us are wired. And a lot of times it's just trying to see how quickly we can forget it, because it's just one bad shot. And you got to expect bad shots. Like that's a big thing I started doing in August and September this year after reading the book, Jira Golf. And he just talks about how most of us are always trying to visualize perfect rounds. It's like, when's the last time you had one of those? So if you lay in bed at night, you think about the tournament you got coming up, you're thinking about all the fairways, all the greens, all the putts, and then the first time you hit a bad shot, you're just mentally out of it now. And it's like, expect bad things to happen. Expect 5 to 7 shots to happen during a round that either bad luck or you just hit them really bad or you weren't focused or whatever. So then you at least have the right expectations. So like you said, you're gonna, no matter how good you're gonna get, you're going to hit bad shots. I mean, I love watching the PGA Tour when they're hitting really bad shots. They don't show them enough. They only show us these highlight reels. But it's like these guys have textbook swings, and they're still hitting a shank every once in a while, hitting a top. So I always said I want an ESPN 8 to show the lowlights.
Yeah.
So we could just watch all the bad shots, because that's just as good, just to kind of humble us everyday golfers that, aren't being paid millions of dollars, have trainers, chefs, and everything else. Like bad shots are going to happen no matter how good you get.
That's the reality of actually going to a golf tournament, because when you go to one in person, you do see what appears to be, I'm not going to downplay it, but you're going to see like average golf. Like they're not always going right at the pin. They're missing greens.
Yeah.
They're, 50 feet away from the hole. It's just what we see on TV. It looks like perfection. Okay, on to number 2. What'd you have?
The second one was to neglecting the mental game. So the mental game to me, I feel like is something that I have always been fascinated with. I read my first Dr. Bob Rotella book probably 10 years ago. I think I went back on my Amazon search history because I was trying to figure out when I got into the mental side of things a little bit. And I remember a little bit in high school, kind of dabbling, but I've always had an aggressive temper and club throws. I've had some embarrassing moments on the golf course. And I knew that the mental part was holding me back. And so when I really look back on, like, if you're getting to a place where you're breaking 80 consistently, obviously you have a good swing, you have probably a pretty good short game, good putting. But man, if you hit a bad shot, like you just said, we're going to hit bad ones. And then all of a sudden you melt down and the next shot sucks. And then the next shot sucks. All of a sudden, one bad shot led to 3 bad shots in a row. You have a double bogey. Now your brain is just like off the charts. You're on the next tee. You're probably going to hit a bad shot. And it just snowballs. And so having the ability to just be like, bad shots happen, focus on my routine, one shot at a time, knowing all the things that I've went through for the mental game has just helped so much. And I have tried almost everything you can think of, from golf hypnotherapy, meditation seminars, Psych K. I mean, I don't even know what some of the stuff was. I mean, I'm fascinated because this thing runs our life on and off the course. And for me, when it's like trying to get it on a leash, if you will, during the round and get it under control. And so that's why I've read tons of different books, learned about the mental golf type system. That actually probably made one of the biggest differences in my game. That probably took me from scratch to a +2. So yeah, there's just so many things with the mental game. I think that people, if they don't have any, start with some, generic kind of sports psychology books, just get a little bit. But if you're already in that specific like 70s and you're trying to take it to the next level, that's why I got certified with the mental golf type system, because it's customized to who you are as a person, because we're all hardwired differently. The easiest example I always like to give is the extrovert versus introvert. So you got Tiger, introvert, Phil, extrovert. If Tiger tried to play like Phil or Phil tried to play like Tiger, it would go terribly because they're hardwired differently. And so people don't think about that though. And I made that mistake right when I got back into tournament golf, 2016, 2017. Tiger's obviously my favorite golfer of all time, but I'm an extrovert, as you can tell, chatty Cathy. And if I try and play like Tiger, head down, not talking to my competitors, what's that doing to my mind? It's stressing me out. It's not allowing me to get in the zone. But I thought, well, that's how Tiger played. Well, that's not how I'm hardwired. So you take the personality test, you figure it out, and then it helps you with like how you should act on the golf course, how you should pick targets, what you should do in your routine, how you should game plan with yardage books, different things. And so it's like, man, the littlest things make such a big difference. And so there's a lot with the mental game, and we have so much more kind of knowledge and understanding of the brain and the mind and all these different tools and resources. So that's a rabbit hole I do encourage people to go down, because you can never really learn about yourself too much and learn how to think and act and perform better on and off the course. So if you got to go down a rabbit hole, go down the mental one.
Okay, and then the next one, I did not think about my score every second of every round. So to become things I did not do to become a scratch golfer, which is I did not think about the score.
Yeah, I remember doing a call with a mental coach in 2018, and I was like, I really want to win this tournament. It was a specific tournament I go to back in Oregon. And he's like, you should never try and win a specific tournament. You should never try and shoot a certain score on any given day. He's like, it just adds so much more pressure to a game that already has a lot involved with the mental side of things. And you've played golf. You can hit it great in the range and then just hack it around out there. And it's like you're just putting extra pressure. So I do not set score goals. I had my lowest 9 holes this year, and I had no idea where I was. I finished the round and it was like, whoa, I shot 31. Like,
how was that possible though? I am calling bullshit on that, because
that's fair.
Man, when I am having a good round, I mean, it's not that I'm like tallying it up by any means or adding it up, but I can add in my head, what's going on.
I was just so in my zone. So like I said, the zone is different for everybody. Tiger zone, your zone, my zone. How you are, how you're wired really will determine how you get in that kind of flow state in golf. Just like feels easy.
Yeah.
The putter was hot too. So like I made 2 putts and I made like a 5-footer first. And then I made this like just nasty, like 15, 18-foot downhill double breaker. And like sometimes when you make a putt like that, it feels like the hole's a bucket for the rest of the day. And that's kind of how it was.
Exactly.
And so I was just in attack mode. So what I like to do instead of set score goals is birdie goals. So I try and have 4 to 6 birdies around. I wish I could say I get that every time. That specific day, I did hit my 6 birdie goal because it was a 4-ball event. So I knew we had to go low. And having a birdie goal is something I learned from one of my coaches, just kind of keeps you a little bit more aggressive because like bogeys are going to happen. Like I have had 2 bogey-free rounds this year, I think. So pretty much anticipate bogeys.
Yeah.
Try to avoid the doubles, right? But it's like you have to make birdies to offset that. And so that doesn't mean I aim more aggressively or try and attack or hit every putt 3 feet by the hole just to say I got it there. But it just kind of gives me a little bit of a target throughout the round so I can, try and make a birdie every 3 holes and just kind of have that mindset, especially when you play good. Like when you get off to a hot start, one of the worst things people do is start to do that tally in their score. Well, I'm 3 under right now. I've never been 3 under. If I keep shooting 3 under, I'm going to shoot 69. I can't wait to tell my friends, my family, make a bad swing, hit, make a double, and your hole you're
It's
out
like,
of it.
I can't wait to tell my friends and family. Meanwhile, you're on hole 6.
Yep. I mean, that's how it works. Though the brain
whole
loves
story
to
is-
wander. Yeah. So like for me, it is really just about not having a score goal and just trying to stay as one shot at a time. I always say leave the analyzing for after the round. A lot of us try to, if you hit one bad shot, like we said, you start to analyze it, like save that for afterwards. That's the time to do it. Stay one shot at a time. Focus on that routine. That's really your anchor on the golf course.
Yeah. Okay. Next up.
Next up, we got, I had 2 posts. So this, again,
Yeah.
you nailed the topic. One of them was that I added today, thinking about it, was kind of just an extension today, was not judging an okay front 9. So a lot of times, like it's easy to just be like, playing okay, but then all of a sudden you can just light it up on the back.
Yeah.
So I think that a lot of us, we have an okay warm up and we think, like this round's not going to be very good. Or we have a really bad warm up and you're like going on the first tee scared.
Yeah.
And even if you play 9 and you're like, I just can't really get anything to fall, all of a sudden a couple happen on 11 or 12 and you can really make it. So I think that consistently managing your expectations and not judging a round or judging your day based on a warm-up or even a front 9, because all it takes is a few good swings or a few putts to go in to have that confidence kind of bounce back.
Exactly. All right. What's next?
Another one that we talked about, was to not overcomplicate the swing. So again, we talked a little bit about it on I think in the stack episode too, but like the biggest thing for me is if you're constantly thinking about your swing on the golf course, it's really hard to keep your mind calm and get in the zone and play your best.
Yeah.
I encourage people that I work with to have 1 swing thought max.
Yeah.
Like max. I have none. And people are like, how do you do that? I'm like, I just try and think about the target. Like that's just how I'm wired. And if I do have a swing thought, if I'm like going through something, I will have it be as simple as possible. It's not like cock your wrist here or do this. Like I like to have more setup thoughts than swing thoughts. Because a lot of times if you get your setup right, the rest of your swing takes care of itself. So like one of the things for me is if I get my feet a little bit closed, it changes my path and I hit some really bad shots. So I don't have a swing thought per se, but when I'm walking into the golf ball, I am double checking my alignment because I know if I get my alignment, most of the time it's going to work out well. So overcomplicating your swing, I think, like I said, the YouTube rabbit hole makes that happen. People practice their technical changes way too close to before they go out. And even like the day of, you shouldn't be thinking like technical stuff or training aid stuff. Like your warm up is a warm up. It's not a practice session. So just as simple as you can make it. Like I said, you got to train it on the range, trust it on the course. So that way you can go out and just focus on the target, focus on playing golf instead of playing your golf swing. Because you see those guys and girls, they're just looking at positions and trying to do this.
It looks terrible.
It just doesn't look fun to me.
It does not look fun. No, not
Are you
at
like
all.
that? Are you a technical person or are you just trying?
No, I consider myself very good from going from range or lesson to the course. Like I'm able to drop it all on the course.
You have 1 swing thought or none?
I have 1.
Okay.
I usually have 1.
Do you
But
have
it
like
can change.
Okay.
It all depends on that day,
Is
really.
it a swing thought or a setup thought or?
It's a swing thought usually,
Okay.
but I do keep it simple. And again, it might form throughout the round. It might just kind of be seeing what the swing is doing that day and,
That's a good
and
point
have
too,
to
yeah.
find a swing thought to help me
Just to
get
kind of
through
adapt.
the round. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just because the one you brought in, if that's not really working or you're starting to see something a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. But I'm very good at I've been getting lessons lately and I will not bring that shit onto the course.
That's good,
No
though.
way.
That's good. I mean, is that something you've always been able to do? Because I feel like that's one of the biggest problems with
I've
most
probably
golfers.
gotten better at it, but I just know I practice a lot or I practice a good amount. So I just trust it. I trust that the work I do on the range, at the practice facility will eventually start to show up on the course. I don't feel like there should be pressure, when you get on the course to start focusing 10 times more on what you've been working on. It's like you've already done the work. Now it's time to play the game. you know?
Right. Play the game, exactly,
Yeah.
not play the golf swing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the right mentality. Like
Yeah.
everyone should just have that written on like a note card, you know, just,
Exactly. And
we're playing golf today.
Yeah, and I'm still not hitting like every good shot, but it's like there's nothing you can do out there.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, you have one shot to hit the golf ball when you're out in the course. So it's just like you gotta just trust it.
Yeah, exactly. Trust. I think, like you said, though, that actually kind of goes into the next point that I had mentioned on
Yeah.
that post was to not skip regular practice. Like you're not going to trust it if you never practice
Yeah.
or never work
Yeah.
on an issue or get the right equipment that's for your game. So yeah, if you want to trust it, you obviously have to put in the work. And so I think you get to that point though where there's more practice doesn't always mean better practice. And so for me, it is really about being intentional. Like you have the practice plans and stuff you talk about. You have different Instagram posts. Like having the worst thing for me is when I go out to the range and I just have no idea what I'm doing.
Yeah.
You
So
know,
tell us an example of what you do when you go out to the range.
I could probably download your resource to get
Yeah.
better at that. But yeah, no, it's really like for me, I try and break it up. So like I practice at Legacy a lot.
Okay.
And so I like it there because they have a good short game area too. And so I got there, this was like, I'd say hour 40 is about the max I'm into it.
Yeah,
Like after that.
I'm pretty similar.
Yeah. And so I get there, the first thing I do is always do putting first because it's the part I always want to skip.
Yeah.
So I always do that. And I do a couple different things. I either do the Pro Path putting mirror. I love that training aid. So I either do that, I do short putts, or I do Decade Golf has the putting simulation. So it has on the app 18 different targets that you might face on the course. So you hit the first one's, a 4-foot putt, next one's 40 feet, next one's 12 feet. And so you just do one ball and you go through that for 18 holes and you go through your routine and then you log how far it went past or if you made it. And then after the 18 holes, it'll calculate your strokes gained to let you know if it was actually you did good or you would have lost strokes. So that's kind of nice, and I like that one. There's other apps I think that have that too. But
The Stack Systems putting
I haven't checked that out yet. Is that good?
Is the same idea.
Okay.
I'm going to be starting to try it out soon, but Sasho explained it very similar, so it must be.
Yeah, it just gives you like some nice guidance because I feel like one of the biggest problems is people, even when they do practice, it's, throw 3 balls, work on 15 to 20 footers. Like it's just not that intentional.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's better than nothing. But if you are going to go out and actually spend time at the short game area, do your routine, go through that, like try and log it so you can actually measure, hey, was this a good day? Was this not? And you can do them in a couple times if you want, if you have extra time. So that's usually what I do at the beginning. And then typically go to the range after that. And then I will do a couple different things. Sometimes I'll use a training aid. As a golf writer, I get a lot of different stuff sent to me. So I'm always kind of tinkering with different ones. And yeah, there's some of them I really like. And so I might use a training aid, but if not, honestly, I really just do mostly wedges and a little bit of irons, like 10% of my practice. Like I really don't do a ton of iron work, mostly wedges and driver. Specifically with driver too, I had a post about this. It's pretty boring, but I just do 2 alignment sticks basically in front of it. And I have the same target and I'm just trying to hit the same shot over and over and over again. I do not want to try and hit any other shot other than I just have a stock tee shot. I'm not trying to hit a draw. Like I'm a natural, little bit of a cut player. So I'm playing my fade on the range. I'll try and hit 20 in a row and see how many I can get out of that. And so I'll just do the same target, same shot, because I don't want to ever play a driver that is different from my core shot shape, just because it's going to introduce the two-way miss. It's going to make me think too much. So if I try and play a draw, I'll start thinking about, okay, I got to get my hands. Because if you're using an iron, you can just move the ball back in your stance to hit that draw a little bit. If you move a driver back in your stance, that's going to be bad. You're getting that sky mark. So it's boring. Like I wish I could say practice is super cool and I do all these things, but it really is short game, wedges. Like I said, a little bit of irons. Sometimes I'll do the 9-shot drill, not to learn how to hit draws and things like that, but just to understand club face control a little bit more. I think Tiger made the 9-shot drill really cool, to hit the tic-tac-toe kind of windows. You hit the low fade, then the high draw, then the straight.
Oh, yeah. So when he says, explain what the 9-shot drill is.
Yeah, so the 9-shot drill is imagine a tic-tac-toe grid out there in the distance, and then a low cut shot or low fade would be the bottom left one. And then a high draw shot would be the top right one. So you're basically trying to hit all 9 shots that you can hit, 3 fades, 3 draws, 3 straight shots at different trajectories. And so that can work for certain type of people, really enjoy kind of geeking out on stuff like that. I get a little bit frustrated sometimes because I don't ever really hit draws unless I'm behind a tree. I'm pretty much playing 1-shot shape all the time, but it does help you understand club face control a little bit more. So if you do find yourself behind a tree or you have to hit over something, it'll help you out. So when I do work on the iron game, that is one of the things I will do. But yeah, for the most part, it's wedges and woods, and just because those are going to be the majority of my play. And then after that, I will go to the chipping green, and then I'll do probably half of it like going through my routine, and then half of it just super random practice because I love short game practice. I used to in Oregon when I was a kid, I had like the block, original, not the iPhone, what is it called even? Not the iPad? Oh man.
Oh,
how old am I?
Wait.
iPod, the original iPod. That's
yes.
how old I am. So I've had like 15 different ones. So I would go out with this one, had like 8 songs or whatever you could have on it, and I would spend hours on the short game area just trying out different shots. So that is one thing that I would recommend people do. I mean, you have to get good at obviously the basic chips, the basic pitches, the basic bunker shots. But if you want to lengthen your short game practice a little bit, you got to just make it fun and like try and hit all kinds of shots. Try and hit these long bunker shots, make them plug, put them next to a tree root. Like to me, that kind of gets that creativity, that childlike enthusiasm that I really had for the short game. And that's one of the biggest things that helped me in high school drop 50 shots was spending hours and hours on the short game area, just learning about different ways to do that. So I will do a lot of random practice with the chipping because that to me is the most fun. You can be really creative with it.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, what you do with your driver is very interesting. And I do believe I saw that post where you were talking about that. It's interesting, but you are aware of your stock shot. And to me, I'm thinking about my stock driver shot. I'm like, well, if I had to pick, I would say it's probably a draw. But do I even want that to be my stock shot? I don't even know. You know?
Why wouldn't you want it to be your...
I don't know. It just seems like that's no one's stock shot. It seems like a baby fade is most people's preferred.
I can't tell you how many articles I've written about how to hit a draw. So everyone's Googling it, clearly wanting to do it. So you might be, you're the small percentage of people that's doing it.
We'll see.
I think it's playing that one shot though. Just like if you're on the 18th hole of a tournament and you're in the lead, what's the shot you're going to hit?
Oh my God, I'd be so nervous.
No,
I'm going back to the 18th hole.
So excited. You're not nervous, you're excited.
But what I like about that drill though is that it's extremely simple. And especially with a driver, you know, you just want to like start just banging drivers all day long. And so even having something as simple as this is the target, this is where I'm going to fade it or draw it off of 20 times. Let's see how many times out of 20 I can execute it. It's like,
and taking breaks. Like I'll do 5 at a time.
Yeah, because that is a lot.
Yeah. But to me, I want to know when I get up on any hole, even if it's a dog leg left, I'm playing my shot shape with the driver, and I just want to be able to pick targets better. So when you have one that you just go to, and again, I learned all this from Decade Golf. So when you go through that and you just have that confidence, you're not trying to think about manipulating the club head. You're not trying to think about too much technical stuff. And you can just get up, and it's so much easier to pick targets. It's so much easier to not have overwhelming swing thoughts and just to get up there and swing with confidence. So
yeah. That's great. Well, I love talking about practice. All right, next up.
Let's see here. Skipping. Ignoring course management. We have to.
Yeah, let's touch on it.
What is your, do you have a code? I know you talked about you were going to get into Decade. I don't know if you ever did. But
I didn't. I'm going to, though.
So,
you always inspire me to, but then I probably have like a little squirrel moment where I forget.
I mean, it's just so easy to me because it's a system to follow, and I just want to make golf as easy as possible.
Yeah.
And so, do you have rules for certain holes? So, you're a draw player. So, do you not like a front right pin maybe? Or do you play more of a fade with your irons?
Michael, to be honest, I'm not that good.
Plus handicap, that good.
I'm a soft cap 2 right now, but I'm not that good yet. We'll say yet.
Okay,
so,
there we go.
So there's not that much thought going into it, but my appreciation for having a strategy on a golf course has become much greater. I only became a scratch golfer because I learned how to play golf. I learned how to play the game. And that is all about course management. It's all about strategy. So I'm not to the hyper level of, this shot shape going into this green yet. But, I am showing more respect to these golf courses and how to play the game. So I am laying up a lot more. I'm definitely taking into account, I do want to get as far as possible in a lot of cases, but without putting that double bogey into play, and...
So if you can, laying up's one of the biggest course management mistakes I feel like I made. I used to try and lay up to the perfect distance. Yeah. But, all the numbers show that there really is no perfect distance. If you're 50 yards out, you're going to hit it better or closer than if you're 80 yards out.
Exactly.
And so I think that most golfers need to understand that. Like, obviously, if there's trouble up there and you can't get over the water, like you shouldn't hit it and hope for the one shot, the 1% time you can do it. But if there's no trouble up there, like get as close to the green as you can, just because it just comes down to if you're going to hit it closer, and the closer putt, the more likely you are to make it. So yeah, with course management, I mean, there's a lot of different things from the tee to the green, but I think one of them would be to hit drivers more often. Again, 3-wood, there's a great study that I reference a lot, and people love to push back on it, but it's from Arcos Golf. It's from Lou.
Oh, yeah.
It has 540 million shots they analyzed over 10.5 million rounds, and they found for a male 5 handicap golfer, they hit 49% of fairways with their driver. Okay, that's not bad. I mean, the average PGA Tour player is a little like 60%, so it's 10%, right? But then everyone thinks, well, I'm going to hit 3-wood to play it safe. Well, that study found that they hit little more than 3% of the fairways. So yeah, your 3-wood might be a smidge straighter, but 3% is not that much. And then you're going to be 20 yards back. And then that's going to just increase your scoring average. And you're going to have a 7-iron instead of an 8-iron, or maybe a 9-iron. And so I think that one of the biggest things I always just recommend to everyone is that's why I do that driver drill so much, because I love my driver. Like, get fitted for it, make sure it's right for you. But when the equipment's dialed in, then you can just work on developing that stock shot. You can hit driver more often, and you're going to be able to go for par 5s and 2 more. You're going to have shorter wedge shots in, and it's just going to make scoring a lot easier because you're just going to have those shorter clubs that are much easier to control.
Yeah. Wouldn't you say, because I'm thinking of a hole in particular at my home course, Arizona, number 6. If I use a driver, I can get pretty close to the green.
Just par 4 then?
Par 4, excuse me, yep. Short par 4. But I always lay up because the last place I want to be is in a bunker under like 40 to 60 yards out.
Not a fun shot.
No, not a fun shot. So wouldn't you agree that is almost as penalizing as chipping out, getting behind a tree or going into the water?
Yeah, I think that's a tough one. I feel like if you really wanted to geek out, you could just hit that driver 5 times. You could lay up 5 times. You could track which one's going to do better. Because obviously, home course, you play it a lot. But I think it's one of those where almost it feels like you're playing not to lose versus playing to win. And so, you might get it in there sometimes. You might make a bogey or double, but you might also hit on the green and give yourself an eagle chip or an eagle putt. So it's like you kind of got to weigh the pros and cons. Obviously, I'm not saying I love the 40 to 60 yard bunker shot any more than you do.
I mean, what is even the technique behind
40 to
60 yard?
It kind of depends. I had one I hit in Oregon this year that I still think about. I'm like, that was really good. It was like a 30-yard shot, but it still was like, if I thin this at all, it's out of bounds. And it was match play, and the guy that I was playing with I had a conceded birdie, so I'm like, whoa, we have to get this up and down. And it's like one of those where you're in the bunker, but you have to hit over the rest of the bunker, then hit over a ridge, land. I mean, executed it perfectly. And I used a gap wedge for that shot. So I usually, for like a 40 to 60 yarder, it'll depend on how much run out you have. But I typically, like a normal bunker shot, lob wedge, a little bit longer, sand wedge, 25 to 30 yards, I'll go down to gap wedge, but then you're going to get a lot of side spin. So you kind of got to play that. Depends on if you're trying to land it super soft, you probably want a lob or a sand. But then, the 40 to 60, it's either going to be a like opened up lob wedge explosion shot or more of that like gap wedge. I don't really like trying to hit an iron out of there. Some people like to do like a 8 or 9 iron. That's just too long. And it's weird scary for me. So hopefully you don't have that shot much. But
it's a tough one. So I'm just expressing like avoid those bunkers as much as possible.
Is that bunker? I don't remember that hole specifically. I played there a couple years ago, but is it like the whole fairway is kind of taken by that, or is it you can?
Yeah. So by the green, there's like a first section of bunkers, and there's a second section that's that second section of bunkers that's like 30 to 40 yards out that you don't want to be in, and then there's a right bunker that goes the whole fairway. That, goes back, you can get a 70-yard shot, a 60-yard shot, or you can get a 100-yard shot. I can execute a 100-yard shot, but it's getting in those half wedges that just become an issue.
Yeah, well, how do you feel like you play that whole laying up?
Well, I mean, I lay it up. Well, I use a 200, 190, 200-yard hybrid. Goes usually, in the fairway. And then I have, 100-yard, 90-yard wedge.
Are you making any birdies or more?
No, I mean, it's an easy par then. So, I guess I am avoiding. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
okay. We came full circle there.
Worth considering. Yeah. I just think that it's more fun too. Like I love hitting driver.
Yeah.
And so I don't know, when you just see there's so much data out there now that it kind of makes it a little bit easier to be like, okay, well, like I said, that study I referenced, there's like 500 million shots and people still want to push back in the comments. I'm like, look, just test it out and see what's going to work for you. But yeah, I mean, if you can dial in your driver, you're going to be a scratch golfer a lot sooner than if you're trying to hit 3-wood.
Yeah.
It's going to make golf
that makes sense.
A lot easier.
Yeah. Okay, on to the next.
I know course management, we could talk
Oh my God,
all day about that.
Yes.
Let's see. One of the other things I talked about was, well, I actually didn't include it in the post, but I probably wanted to mention it, is that I have not done a lot of golf specific workouts. So I know you go to PFS.
Yeah.
I used to go there back in 2018, by the way. People are, you'll see Rory or Rom are doing all these like specific, like they'll be doing bands on balls with balance and stuff.
And
I can't say I've ever done that. So I wanted to at least include that to be like transparent that I focus more on like conventional like deadlifts, squats, bench, shoulder, pull-ups, like PFS. I did that when they were guiding me along. And then I remember is it Andrew, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I remember he would I even did a session with him and he gave me all the stuff to do and I never did it on my own because I just didn't really know if I was doing it right.
Exactly.
And so, I feel like going to classes would help, but I just think that like you had the guest that was talking about exercise and I've written a few different articles for clients about golf workouts. And so it's like, before you trying to get into all those specialty stuff, like make sure we're working with just like a healthy body to begin with. Make sure you're not going to injure yourself.
Yeah.
Do the big muscles. Most of us sit way too often. Work on the posture. Like I go get chiropractic work every 2 weeks. Massage here and there, acupuncture. Like I definitely try and do stuff, but I cannot say I have necessarily done that. So I wanted to at least include that because I feel like
that's a good point.
A lot of people are always like, oh, I got to do all these. You're on YouTube, like trying to figure trying to figure out which cable row you should do.
It's always really complicated.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why I have to go see Andrew because there's no way, because I like to work out in my garage.
Okay.
So I don't have all the cables and such. I have a bunch of dumbbells. And so I have, the bike and the treadmill. So I get in a good strength workout, good conditioning workout, but there's a lot of moves I can't do. And that's why I go see Andrew. And they're so freaking complicated that there's no way I'm going to a gym and attempting these in public on my own.
Do you feel
anyways.
like you've seen a specific exercise, or since you've been going there, like do you feel like there's a difference, or what kind of made you?
I think he definitely helps me because there are for sure weaknesses in my core, for sure, and my glutes. So I find that my legs take over a lot of the strength workouts that I do on my own. And so he really zeroes in on my core and my glutes and just forces me to get that power in there. And he also is very aware of my golf swing and what I struggle with, what I'm working on. So he is finding exercises that will help do moves that are the corrected way. So I'm trying to figure out some muscle memory.
Do you use those before the round too, or is that?
Some of them, but again, most of the time I have to see Andrew to do Andrew moves.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's a G. I wish I was half as fit as that guy.
Yeah. He is so strong. I pick up like kettlebell that's like 80 pounds. I'm like, come on, is this like a lot of weight here? He's like, I had the 12-year-old doing that earlier today. I'm like, fuck, God. Meanwhile, I'm feeling
insult to injury.
Yeah,
right
I'm like
there.
feeling so strong, and he's like the 12-year-old.
Well, yeah, it's a lot of like real isolated stuff too. That I remember, and so it's very, very different than anything I would do.
Exactly.
On my own.
Yeah. So you need his help. All right.
Okay.
Well, that's a good point, though. That's a good point.
So I think just start with the overall health. I think that's always good, and then you can dial it into those Rory crazy things and other ones to help with the golf side of things. But yeah, speed training. I'm telling you, that's still one of the best golf workouts we can have.
Exactly. Okay, what else?
Those were the big ones that I had. I had a few other things that I had mentioned just to like speed up success to become that scratch golfer. We talked about things you should avoid. I think one of the things that we should not avoid and really focus on is getting fitted equipment. I mean, if you're at that point, I mean, if you're breaking 90, you should really get fit for clubs. I know it costs a little bit of money, but think of it like an investment in your game. If you're serious about golf and you're getting into tournaments and you just want to make the game a little bit easier, like equipment is everything. I replaced 13 of 14 clubs this year, and I feel excited for next year because I know every club is like working for me. I think that earlier in my career, for sure, I just let ego get in the way a little bit when it came to equipment, and I'd want to play this cool iron that a pro was playing, and I'm not a pro, and you're just making golf harder. So like I think getting the right fitted equipment, at least with your driver and putter, are two things you should not neglect if you want to be a scratch golfer or better, just because putters every hole, drivers hopefully 10 to 14 times around, setting you up. And if you're behind trees all day, no, that's going to be tough. And then obviously you got to have a lot of confidence with the putter. And if it's just the lie angle, the loft, the look, the alignment, all those things make such a big difference. So don't neglect equipment. Do you do a lot of experimenting there? Or?
No, I've done more experimenting lately,
Yeah,
for
you just
sure.
got fitted, right?
Yep. But I would say even if you have, regularly break 100 and you have goals for yourself, like you love golf and you want to get better, like you want to break 90, you want to break 80, you want to commit yourself to playing this sport and working on getting better, get fitted. Yes, it's an investment, but you are making the sport so much better. By having clubs that are either hand-me-downs or just off the rack, you could be stunting your progress exponentially.
Couldn't agree more. I just wanted to make sure you agreed, because it feels
Absolutely.
like it's one of those things where people will do all the swing changes, but then they're playing
or they have this idea like, oh, I'm going to get fitted when this happens.
Oh,
or
yeah, that's a good one
like,
too. Yeah.
Or when I become more consistent. Oh my God.
Yep.
That drives me crazy when people say that.
That's one of the ways you become more consistent.
Yes.
It's like, I'm glad you said that. That's absolutely true.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else that you wanted to say?
Those were the big ones that I had in terms of what we got to avoid to hit that magical 0 handicap.
Yeah. Which is a really fun goal to have and something to work towards. For sure.
Definitely.
So I wanted to touch on one last thing before we wrapped up this episode. Lou Stagner, again, one of our favorite golf content.
Wicked smart.
Yes. Insanely smart. He's been on the podcast a couple times. He tweeted, what is the difference? And he was putting this out to his following, this question. What is the difference between a scratch player and a true scratch player? And I just found it very interesting. I also wrote down a couple of the answers or printed out a couple of the answers.
Oh, yeah. I was wondering what people said.
Okay, wait. So I'm glad you didn't look at the answers. So what do you think they said?
I don't know what they said. I know what I would say.
Okay, say it.
It's getting into tournaments. I mean, if you're a scratch golfer in a casual Saturday, Sunday game, like that's fantastic. Like seriously, great job. You're in the top percentage of AM golfers across the world that are spending thousands of dollars on the dumbest, awesomest game ever.
Yeah.
So like, congrats.
Yeah.
But tournament golf is so different. And if you really want to see that scratch golf is, I don't want to say it's not that good, but it is like, wow, a scratch golf can really break down and shoot an 85 real quick in a tournament.
Yes.
So I would say that's the biggest thing, just because we've talked about this before, but like when you get into tournaments, it's like a different person comes out sometimes, and that's where you're going to learn the most, though, and that's where you're going to really improve, and then you can really start to go low in those casual rounds, and then hopefully put it together in the tournament round. So that'd probably be the first thing, and then the other thing for me is a true scratch golfer knows that they have like a good expectation management. They understand what we've talked about. You're going to hit bad shots. You're going to have bad rounds. You don't need to overhaul your swing, but they know that they're not like rushing to get that quick fix.
Yeah.
So those are the two things I thought of.
Those are two great guesses, because the main one that people said was basically a scratch golfer plays mostly on the same course. A true scratch golfer plays many different courses with a variety of ratings.
Couldn't agree more.
So that's pretty much the same. I mean,
that's with tournaments.
You add with tournaments in there. I mean, you play tournaments, you're going all over the place.
Yeah, you got to have a game that can travel.
And so and explain to the listener what that means, a game that can travel.
Yeah, I think that like a lot of people, like I grew up in a small town in Oregon, and there's like only 3 courses right there. And so like you have to drive 30, 40 minutes just to get to another one. And so like you get very comfortable on that same course. You know how every putt breaks. You know what you're going to hit. You don't even really think about it. It's just kind of like on autopilot. And then all of a sudden you might be a 75 shooter at that course. And then you go to a different course 30 minutes away and you shoot 82, and you're like, well, what happened? And then it's just like, well, it's different targets, different greens. You don't know the breaks. And so you just have a different familiarity with the golf course and the conditions. And so having a game that can travel is just being like, hey, I could go to this place in Florida, or I could go to this place in Arizona, or I could go to this course in Phoenix, this place in Scottsdale, and they're different venues. Maybe one's more of a links layout, one of them is, pot bunkers, and one of them has more desert golf, and you're still able to put together a decent number. So yeah, having that I think is a really good one on that one.
Yeah, and then the other point I wanted to make too was someone answered dispersion, score dispersion. So scratch golfer score dispersion will be 70 to 82. true scratch player will be 70 to 75. So they're still having the same low rounds, and I think this is why I fluctuate so much personally, is because my score dispersion is pretty big still. I would love to say everything was between 70 and 75, but it is more 70 to 82.
Yeah.
And that's why, a year ago I'm a +1, now I'm a soft cap 2, and I'm going back down. I'm going to venture back down there, but it's just, it is what it is. It's just...
I kind of disagree with that one.
You do? Okay,
Yeah.
tell me your thoughts.
I'm a +2 and I shot at 84 this year. I also shot at 66. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know and they were in tournaments, so maybe there's the pressure or different
Yeah.
courses, things like that. But no matter how good you get, I mean, you still see professional golfers throw an 80 up.
Oh, yeah.
And so, yeah, I think that's just part of golf, unfortunately.
Well, and then what do you think about course ratings too? Because I find that my score doesn't change much whether I'm playing the forward tees or 2 tee boxes back. But the rating, especially for women, will go substantially up.
What's the yardage difference, would you say?
I would say 5,500 yards to 6,500 yards.
You're scoring the same at 6,500?
Very similar. So when I am playing,
Golf clap,
thank you. Well, I'm just saying, because to me, you still have to score.
Right.
You still have to make the putt. I still have to hit a shot. And so when I am regularly, and I much more play 5,500 yards than 6,500 yards, it's harder for me, because again, I post a lot of scores, to go super low all the time, because you still have to make the shots. Whereas if I played a longer yardage more frequently,
Sounds like your long game is dialed in.
well, not necessarily. I think I have a good short game.
Okay.
So it saves me, but I don't know. I battle with that a little bit.
I never look at the course rating.
Well, and it's not that I'm fixated on the course rating. It's just that I'm thinking about handicap indexes and how they fluctuate, and how you play more rounds. It's going to fluctuate more. You only play, 10 rounds a year. There's only so much fluctuation you're going to get. I guess that's the conversation I'm trying to have.
Yeah, I mean, I do think it's important to play different tees, especially if you play the same course over and over again, because then you're just hitting the same shots, same tees, same iron shots.
Exactly.
And so I think that's one of the best things you can do is keep playing different tees. Like, I always challenge guys to go play the front tees or the senior tees. Most people don't want to do it, but that's how you score.
And seriously, there was a day I took Adam and Abe out to Phoenix Country Club with some of my friends, and we had 2 teams, and we played the forward tees.
Nice.
Okay? These guys, and we were joking about it after, could not hit a 40-yard. Okay, so it didn't matter that they were hitting 300-yard drives and getting really close to the green, because they could not hit a 30, 40, 50-yard wedge shot to save their life. Okay, so I really don't think their scores were that much better either. It's funny to me that guys get so weird about playing forward tees, because I actually think it would be more challenging to them than they realize.
Ego has ruined many rounds.
The male species
we're still cavemen, pretty much. Okay, I'm 100% sure of that. I mean, if people would just play different tees, use forgiving equipment, not get mad, like, wow, shocker, you play better. But damn, testosterone gets in the way sometimes.
Yes. So it's an interesting, but yes, Michael has a point. Definitely, if you play the same course over and over again, which a lot of us do, there's usually a course that we play much more than others. Play a different tee box. Play a combo tee box.
Combo, good call.
It won't change. The yardage won't change too much, but trust me, you're going to see a lot of different shots out there.
Yeah, and that's how your game learns to travel, is hitting different. If you're hitting the same shots on every hole every time you go out, you're not going to do very good when you go to a different course and you got to hit an 8-iron when you only hit 9 wedges all the time or whatever, So
exactly.
and it's more fun. I just get, I don't know, for me.
You know what? As usual, Mike Leonard is psyched about golf. He is
ready.
pumped.
I'm ready. Going to Cabo next week, playing Cavera. So.
I know. Tell us. What about your Cabo trip?
Have you been there?
I have actually never been to Cabo.
If you type in Cavera Golf Review on YouTube, proud to say our family video comes up first.
Really?
Like 10,000 views. The first video is my girlfriend topping a shot right into the ocean. So
nice.
I think that catches viewers' attention really well. And it's just an awesome course. It's like, I've played Pebble. I've played there. I have more fun at that course. Like,
Really?
you got comfort stations every 4 holes. The views are incredible. You're on the ocean.
Well, it's probably a little warmer than
Oh, it's
Pebble.
perfect. Oh, Pebble. We
Yeah.
went in August and it was still foggy and, kind of cold and wet.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously more iconic and you can walk on the steps of Tiger and all the other greats that have been there. But yeah, for me, I like a good vacation golf. I do not play much casual rounds at all. It's pretty much a practice round or a tournament round. So this is a good time for me just to unplug and hang out and film some content and have some fun.
Are you going as a family or just you and your
Yeah,
girlfriend?
yep, going as a family. It's my mom's birthday week, so we always go to Cabo usually. So it's a lot of fun.
And is that the course? Is that the hotel name too, or what is it?
No,
'Cause
it's,
I don't know anything about Cabo.
Yeah, so it's nice because it's only like 2-hour flight from here. So you're there super fast. Like Cancun's 4 or 5 hours and it's a little bit more work. So yeah, it's nice. It's close. And then you have to stay at one of the resorts to get there. I think there's like 5 or 6 different ones. There's another course that we played last year too. And it's Puerto Los Cabos, I think. I can't remember the exact name, but I mean, very similar. Like they're just gorgeous. Like
They
right
are.
on the ocean right there. And yeah, course conditions are perfect. Yeah, everyone's just super nice. The hospitality's amazing. So yeah, we love it.
And it's a good time of year.
Oh, it's perfect.
To go.
It's supposed to be 73 to 83 every day.
Boom.
Let's go.
Let's go. Thank you, Michael, for being on the podcast
Thank you.
again. I
Always
appreciate
appreciate
it. Will not be the last time, so we will see you again
Thanks
soon.
again, Tori.
Yep.